Let's do this. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fantasy Inc. My name is Wyeth, and today we're talking about the Street Rats of Aramor, Book 1 and 2. The reason why we're talking about Book 1 and 2 today is because Audible has a bundle deal for the two of them, and I'll get into the reasons why a little bit later, but I'm thankful that they did. We'll start on the summary of the book. Our main character, Arian, who is a 13-year-old young man who belongs to a tribe of assassins called the Imaginative. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Please have some discretion if I'm not. This tribe of assassins is shunned by the rest of the world for those that know about them. They also have the notable characteristic of only having gray eyes, so gives them a very discernible characteristic to where they can be easily identified and shunned. This eye condition, though, does give them the ability to have great night vision, which, as you can tell, definitely has the advantages of being an assassin. To sum up the first two books, without getting into any spoilers, Arian is kind of ostracized from his tribe for having magic. Now, the tribe themselves do not know about magic because in this world, it's a death sentence. Everywhere he goes, magic is not allowed. So far, I actually like this choice of having magic to be shunned and it to be extremely rare due to the fact that probably most mages were killed off previously through the centuries. The reasons as to why this has been done, we'll have to find out later because they haven't really been discussed in the series, but I'm sure it's going to be a good twist. To jump further into the summary, Arian has some beef with an older young man in his tribe who just does not care for him. Arian's family themselves, since his father is such a good assassin, is looked down upon by the chief of the tribe, and there's some personal grudges there. After a quick jaunt to the outside world, seeing as they live underground in the Lost City, Arian definitely is able to broaden his experiences as well as get a lay of the outside land. This is very helpful because, as you can tell, the book is called Street Rats of Aramor. He's not staying in that Lost City for too much longer. After some things I won't get into, he is then thrust into the world on his own, trying to fend for himself, with the goal of getting to the city of Aramor, where he will be just another face in the crowd ideally, even though he will be looked down upon due to his eye color. There is a possibility that the city is so big, he'll be able to find a place in it himself. It's very difficult for me not to get too detail-oriented and still give y'all a good summary of the book, so I'll just kind of leave it at that and give some general discussions for why you should check this book series out. The thing I was worried about when I first started reading was Arian's age. He's 13 years old, which instantly makes me think that this series is going to be a young adult fantasy, basically for kids. I was thoroughly impressed, actually, by the dark elements of this book series. It does get grim, and the facts of life for these kids are very difficult. As a character, Arian is fairly mature for his age, which I can appreciate. Not a big fan of reading books where it's just obviously a 13-year-old, and I'm just face-palming every single time I see the character make these childish mistakes. Now, at the same time, he does tend to make mistakes, whether they're due to the fact of his morals almost getting in the way and him not really looking through the situation as much as he should have. But these decisions are used to basically move the plot along. There is a fantastic pacing to this book, which is one of my favorite things about it so far, where he'll get very much into the details about a certain day that Arian is experiencing, whereas he'll kind of brush over a week or two or a month there. I'm a big fan of this. I hate series that are just day to day to day to day, because it just feels like fluff at that point for me, which is something to avoid. All in all, I think the series is a decent listen so far. Can't wait to check out book 3 and book 4. If you're up to date with book 1 and book 2, feel free to keep watching this video where we take a little deeper dive into Arian's experiences and kind of predict what's to come in the future. I hope this was some help, and remember, keep reading. Hey everybody, welcome back to the deep dive about books 1 and 2 of Street Rats of Aramor. I'm just going to be focusing on the details I want to cover today, opposed to just giving a long-winded explanation further about the books, so we can kind of chat about them, because you've obviously already read them. We're going to start with Arian's banishment from the Umpakan tribe. When it came down to the challenge between the chief's son and Arian, it was very evident that it was not going to go the way Arian had planned, with him bowing out from the competition. Now, I will say, with the chief's son threatening his sister, it did give a little bit of a surprise there of the route that it was willing to take, as well as give a little inclination into how dark this series can get. The death being a surprise was also ideal, because obviously the chief can't just call for Arian's head. Banishment is the only other option. When we get to the final scene of Arian leaving the Lost City and his family is there to meet him, I thought the father and the mother's decision to stay back behind was obviously necessary for the book to continue, for Arian to be a street rat, but also made a lot of sense because they've got kids to raise and there's not going to be any work for an Umpakan man, opposed to a young boy who can make his own relationships growing up. Being thrust out into the outside world, going back to Hob definitely made a lot of sense, and I appreciated the time jump where we didn't see months and months of Arian rebuilding Hob's Crossing. This shows that the writer is definitely considering the reader, knowing that he needs to be able to hit these plot points to move the story further, but not stringing the reader along. When it came to Arian's voyage taking the merchant ship, Michael Wisehart did an admirable job creating suspicion for this ship. I was definitely thinking that this ship had some nefarious goals. The goals were not nefarious, they were definitely secreted, seeing as they were helping out the enslaved people with bringing blankets, but also going a little bit further and helping to rescue them. One thing that I would like to point out is there were relationships that were built on that vessel. Arian being in Umpakan, so close to the city, all the deckhands realized that he was dangerous and started that relationship through a place of fear or malice. As the months progress, you see that they start to lower their walls and accept Arian through his acts of bravery, or some may even say foolishness. This is definitely going to be a note in the series of Arian having to overcome these preconceived notions about his people, and either A, having to win people over who fear him, through respect or through these acts of bravery. It definitely sets a good precedent of why his father could not join him, because though they may fear the young Umpakan man when they first meet him, the fear would not quickly dissolve for his father, though it would for a 13-year-old boy. Going further into the travels, I did appreciate the action scenes where Arian's thinking about how to free the enslaved people and the battle that ensued. My pet peeve when it came to the final chapters of the book was when the pirate ship came to attack them. Though I did admire the Wraith plan, or the dressing the enslaved people up as ghosts utilizing flour, the fact that this tenured captain who's been sailing the seas for many years just has no ideas on how to get out of the situation, so he just decides to take the advice of this 13-year-old deckhand, even though he's saved him from a couple situations. It seems fairly forced to me. At the same time, Arian's the protagonist of the book, so we have to give him the benefit of the doubt where he's going to be the hero in this situation. But I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that this captain couldn't figure out another solution or even tack on ideas to Arian's plan. They kind of just said, all right, that's the best we got, so we're gonna do it. I don't know, I'll have to digress on that and get y'all's opinions on it later. Jumping into book 2, where I view the series to actually start, Arian is finally getting to the city of Aramor. I absolutely disliked how Arian fell for the oldest trap in the book, seeing some street kids dragging another street kid into an alley while he's yelling help. He notes and even acknowledges the fact that this is not a good situation, I should not get into it, but he is driven through this sense of idealism to help save this kid. To give Arian the benefit of the doubt, he's never seen this trope in fantasy books like all of us have, but it's just nails on a chalkboard to me. What saved the situation for me was we not only got to see Arian best the boys that were playing the trick on him, but also most of the beaters that came to back them up. He was going to fail in that situation, but he gets to instantly make a name for himself. Enter Rivi, the healer, who comes to patch him up and becomes his first friend. I do enjoy Rivi as a character. He definitely has the ability to ground Arian, but at the same time, he does not have the ability to stop Arian from just jumping into these very foolish situations, which is what we want as readers, obviously. We want to see our protagonist get into these dangerous situations and find a way to, best the odds. At the same time, that can go a little too far where you realize, is this the unluckiest man for getting into the situation or the luckiest for finding a way out of it? I don't know. He definitely has a bit of luck on his side, so I'll have to keep reading to figure out if that's going to be a trending theme throughout the book. When he comes to join Hurricane and we get to meet the leader of the tribe, Spats, for the first time, I was actually very happy to see just a bad guy. No one who's trying to subvert the story expectations for being nice, and then you get that betrayal at the end. Just having an obviously a bad character or an enemy to the book as a whole is not a breath of fresh air, but something that I enjoy if it's being done correctly. Going further into the series, we get to see, after Spat's terrible voyage to take on Cutter's forces for stealing from their food house, Arian saved the day yet again by warning everyone about the trap to occur. This is a natural way that gets Arian not only in Spat's purview, but leads him to that guild meeting further on into the book, where he's now rubbing shoulders with the leaders of the Street Rats, the 5 different tribes. Given that, it was obvious that he is going to be taken notice of due to his eyes and his brief encounter with Red, who had beaten him senseless the last time that they had met. This is a good way to see how the different tribes of street kids interact, and I would like to mention this. I think the guild aspect of the street rat tribes is done beautifully. To shine a better light on this, we get to see how kids, when placed in positions of power, would interact. It reminds me of Lord of the Flies in a way where you place these children in a situation where they're fending for themselves, and they create not these false dichotomies of power, but these structures of power that's almost built on stilts, where they're so young and they don't have the experience of actually leading people prior to it. So you see certain tribe members like Cutter and Core who are leading with an iron fist, where you see the other tribes like Sandstorm and Red who are leading more subtly and through their smarts and not specifically their brawn, even though Red, the tribe leader of Wildfire, can definitely put up quite a fight herself. I was a big fan of how we got to get introduced to the guild itself, and it gets to show us most likely where Arian is going to be making his stand. Arian's not a background character, obviously, he's our protagonist, so we can most likely predict that he's going to be, if not taking control of Hurricane himself, he is going to be creating his own tribe. So this is a good way for us to see the different players on the field and who Arian is either going to have to ally with or who's going to become his enemies. I, so far, have really enjoyed this series. There had been a couple things that had worried me, but I have to say a lot of those worries have been put to rest so far. What makes me really happy about this series is the fact that these kids are facing these real problems, like possible starvation. There's a potential of getting killed in the street by not only the other tribes, but getting caught by the Lancers and shipped off to the salt mines. There's real stakes for these kids, which allows me to get invested in the book. I'm not worried that the repercussions are going to be too light, like a slap on the wrist, as YA tends to be. This is not YA. I just needed to get past the first book to completely comprehend that. I'm really looking forward to books 3 and 4, Rockslide and Sandstorm specifically. It appears that Arian is going to run into these other tribes and have to figure out how to conduct himself, whether he is going to be the leader of his own tribe or we're going to build further until he finally does take over. I want to get y'all's predictions on the book. If you take the time, feel free to tell me what you thought about the series, books 1 and 2 specifically, in the comments of this video. In the next video, we'll be jumping into books 3 and 4. Again, thank you very much, and be sure to keep reading.